The rain drummed against the windshield as I pulled into my driveway, the glow of my headlights cutting through the mist. It had been an exhausting day at work, long meetings, endless emails, and a boss who seemed to thrive on last-minute deadlines. All I wanted was to park, go inside, and collapse onto my couch with a beer. But as I shifted into park, a sharp, impatient knock on my window made me jolt. I turned and there she was, Karen. Arms crossed, mouth pressed into a thin line, radiating irritation like a malfunctioning space heater. Even through the glass, I could hear the exaggerated sigh of someone convinced the world existed for her convenience. I rolled down the window halfway. "Can I help you?" "You need to move your car," she said, her voice clipped and authoritative. I blinked. "Excuse me?" "This spot. I need it for my guests." She motioned vaguely toward the street where no guests were in sight. "They'll be here soon and I can't have them parking too far away. It's common courtesy." I resisted the urge to laugh. "Karen, this is my assigned parking spot." Her lips pursed. "I know that, but you don't really need it, do you? There's plenty of street parking." I inhaled slowly. "So why can't your guests park on the street instead?" "Because," she said, her tone dropping into that patronizing register I'd come to loathe, "they're my guests. It's my responsibility to make them comfortable." I stared at her, trying to decipher if she was serious. "Yeah, well, it's my spot. And I just got home from a 12-hour shift, so I'm staying right here." Her nostrils flared slightly, but she forced a thin smile. "Look, I'm the HOA president. I do a lot to keep this neighborhood running smoothly. The least you could do is cooperate." Ah, there it was. The thinly veiled threat wrapped in faux politeness. Karen had been running the HOA for years, using her position like a personal scepter to dictate everything from the height of people's grass to the acceptable shade of front doors. Most of the neighbors either tolerated her or actively avoided her. I wasn't in the mood for a power struggle. "Karen, I'm not moving my car." She let out an exasperated huff, shaking her head as if I were being unreasonable. "Fine," she snapped, spinning on her heel and marching away. "But don't say I didn't warn you." I watched her retreat into her house, her porch light snapping on as she disappeared inside. The encounter left a bad taste in my mouth, but I brushed it off. Maybe she was just having a bad day. Maybe she'd let it go. She didn't. The next morning, I stepped outside to find her car parked in my spot. At first, I thought I was imagining things. But no, there it was, her silver Lexus parked smugly in the space clearly marked with my unit number. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to take a deep breath. This wasn't worth blowing up over. I grabbed a piece of paper, jotted down a polite note, ***Hey Karen, I think there was a misunderstanding. This is my assigned spot. Please move your car. Thanks, ***, and tucked it under her windshield wiper. That night, when I came home from work, I found the note crumpled on my doorstep. Alongside it, a formal violation notice from the HOA, citing me for improper trash bin placement. I laughed. A humorless, disbelieving laugh. She was really going to play this game? Fine. The next morning, I knocked on her door. She answered in a silk robe, a coffee mug in hand, looking completely unsurprised to see me. "Karen, why is your car still in my spot?" She took a slow sip of her coffee. "All that. I just haven't had time to move it. Been so busy with HOA matters." "Then maybe you should be less busy and move your car." She gave me an infuriatingly placid smile. "You seem awfully aggressive about this, Jake. It's just a parking spot." My fingers curled into fists. "It's my assigned parking spot." Karen sighed theatrically. "You're really going to make a big deal out of this?" "Yes." She tilted her head, regarding me like an impatient teacher dealing with a slow student. "You know, I could be a great ally to you in this neighborhood. Or I could make things difficult. Your choice." I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. "Move the car, Karen." She didn't. For the next week, I came home every evening to find her car still in my spot. I tried everything, another note, another conversation, even calling the towing company. But, of course, Karen had used her HOA influence to ensure her car was untouchable. She had won. Or at least she thought she had. Then came the night that changed everything. I arrived home later than usual, exhausted, just wanting to go inside. But as I pulled into the driveway, I saw it, ***, Karen sitting in her car, parked in my spot, sipping a glass of wine, ***. She looked right at me, smirked, and raised the glass in a silent toast. That was it. That was the moment I decided that if Karen wanted a battle, I was going to end it. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. I wasn't going to let Karen bully me into submission. There had to be a way to deal with this that didn't involve pointless arguments or banging my head against the bureaucratic wall of the HOA. I started with the proper channels. I sent a formal complaint to the HOA board, citing the assigned parking regulations and including photos of Karen's car in my spot. I detailed her repeated refusals to move and attached a copy of my lease agreement, which clearly stated my ownership of the space. Days passed. No response. I sent a follow-up. Still nothing. Then an envelope appeared in my mailbox, an official letter from the HOA. My stomach twisted as I tore it open, half expecting some bureaucratic nonsense telling me they were handling it. Instead, the words on the page made my blood boil. Violation notice. Unapproved vehicle in HOA space. Fine, $150, ***. I read it twice. 3 times. It didn't make sense. How was I being fined for someone else taking my spot? That night, I pounded on Karen's door. When she opened it, she was already smirking, her arms crossed like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. "You got my letter?" she said, voice dripping with mock sympathy. "You reported me?" I held up the violation notice, my hands shaking with fury. She shrugged. "I warned you. You really should have been more cooperative." I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to say something I'd regret. "This is my parking spot. You know that." She mused, tilting her head. "See, I checked the HOA guidelines, and while, yes, that space is technically assigned to your unit, it also falls under HOA jurisdiction. And as president, I have discretionary authority over common areas." She was lying, twisting the rules to fit her narrative. But she knew the system better than I did, and worse, she had control over it. I exhaled sharply. "So what? You're just going to keep parking there forever?" She smiled. "Oh, don't be dramatic. I'll consider letting you use it again. If you start following the rules." "The rules? You've been violating HOA guidelines left and right, Jake. Trash cans out past collection time, unapproved curtains in your window, and," she glanced at my driveway, lips curling, "that truck of yours? It's an eyesore. Doesn't really fit the aesthetic of the neighborhood, does it?" My fists tightened. "This isn't about my truck. It's about you stealing my spot." Karen let out a sigh, shaking her head as if she was genuinely disappointed in me. "Jake, you need to learn how things work around here. I make the rules. And if you don't like it, well," she spread her hands, "there are plenty of other places you could live." That was it. She wasn't just taking my parking spot, she was testing me. Seeing how much she could get away with. How far she could push me before I either broke or bent to her will like everyone else. But I wasn't everyone else. I tried one last time to go the legal route. I called a towing company directly, explaining the situation. They sympathized but informed me that HOA-issued permits overruled standard towing policies. And since Karen was the HOA, she had conveniently given herself the necessary exemption. I went to my landlord, who seemed nervous about getting involved. He suggested I just play nice with Karen and pick my battles. Even my neighbors, the ones who had grumbled about her behind closed doors, wouldn't take a stand. "She'll just make life hell for you," one of them warned. And that was when I realized, Karen thrived on this. The power, the control. She'd built her little kingdom of fear, and everyone had decided it was easier to obey than resist. But I was done playing her game. The final straw came a few nights later. I came home late again, exhausted, only to find Karen once more parked in my spot. Except this time she was sitting in her car, sipping wine from a glass like she was some kind of queen surveying her domain. She made direct eye contact as I pulled up, smirking as she swirled the wine in her glass. Then she raised it in a silent toast. I turned off my engine, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Karen didn't move. She didn't even pretend to be busy. She just sat there, reveling in her victory. She thought she'd won. She had no idea what was coming. I sat in my car, staring at Karen as she took another smug sip of wine. She thought she had complete control, that I was just another pushover who would eventually give up and accept her ridiculous rules. But what she didn't know was that I had spent the past few days crafting a plan, not one that involved arguing or relying on the useless HOA, but one that would make her regret ever messing with me. Without breaking eye contact, I put my truck into reverse, slowly backing up just enough to reposition. Then, with deliberate precision, I turned the wheel and eased forward until my truck was parked directly behind her car, blocking her in completely. Karen's smirk faltered. She set down her glass and opened her door, stepping out onto the pavement. "What do you think you're doing?" I killed the engine and stepped out of my truck, locking the doors behind me. "Oh me? I'm just parking. In my own spot." Her eyes narrowed. Move your truck. I crossed my arms. No. Her nostrils flared. That's an unauthorized parking maneuver. I'll have you towed. I chuckled. You mean like how I've been trying to tow you for a week? Guess what, Karen? HOA rules apply to designated parking spots, not driveways. My truck is parked legally, which means it's not going anywhere. She stared at me, her mind working overtime to find an angle she could manipulate. This is ridiculous. You can't just trap me in here. I shrugged. You trapped me out of my spot first. Seems fair, don't you think? Her voice rose. I have things to do. Places to be. I pulled out my keys and jingled them in my palm. Yeah. Well, so did I. Every day this week. But I had to waste time looking for parking because someone was too entitled to follow basic rules. Her jaw clenched. You have no idea who you're messing with. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, I think I do. You're the woman who thinks she owns this entire neighborhood. The one who dishes out fines like candy but refuses to follow her own rules. The one who loves control, until someone takes it away from her. Her face turned an impressive shade of red. Move the truck. I smiled. Nope. Then, without another word, I turned on my heel and walked inside my house, locking the door behind me. For a moment there was silence. Then, bang bang bang, asterisk. Karen pounded on my door, shouting about violations, legal action, and something about calling the police. I let her scream. I let her fume. I let her realize, slowly but surely, that she had no immediate way out of this. Because the best part? I had the whole next day off. Karen, however, had plans. I turned off my porch light and peeked through the blinds, watching as she stomped back to her car. She yanked on the door handle, sat inside, and pulled out her phone. Probably calling for a tow truck. I chuckled to myself. I had already checked. No towing company in the area would move a legally parked vehicle from a private driveway without a police order. And since I hadn't violated any real laws, that wasn't happening. So, Karen had two options. 1. Call someone to pick her up and abandon her car until I felt like moving. 2. Sit and stew in her own entitlement. She chose the latter. I went about my night, ordered some takeout, and even took a long hot shower. When I checked again an hour later, Karen was still sitting in her car, arms crossed, seething. By midnight she had turned off her interior lights. By 2 a.m. she had slumped against the window, asleep. And by 7 a.m., when I walked out onto my porch with a fresh cup of coffee, she was still there, disheveled and furious. I took a slow, exaggerated sip and waved. Morning, Karen. Sleep well? She sat up abruptly, rubbing her face, blinking against the early sunlight. The realization of the past 12 hours hit her like a freight train, and for the first time ever, she looked uncertain. I leaned against the railing. You know, you could have just moved your car yesterday. Would have saved you a whole lot of trouble. Her eyes darted around, searching for some kind of upper hand. Some kind of power. But she had none. She had lost. And she knew it. Karen's face was a battlefield of emotions. Rage, humiliation, and something close to disbelief. For the first time she wasn't in control and she hated it. Her usual smugness had evaporated, replaced by a hollow, exhausted glare. I took another sip of my coffee, savoring the moment. So, Karen, I said, tilting my head. What have we learned? She opened her car door, moving stiffly from a night spent contorted in an uncomfortable position. Her hair was a mess, her blazer wrinkled, her eyes shadowed from lack of sleep. You think this is funny? She spat, voice hoarse. I shrugged. A little bit. Her hands balled into fists at her sides. You're going to regret this. I sighed dramatically. Karen, you've been saying that for days and yet, here we are. She inhaled sharply, like she was trying to keep herself from screaming. Move your truck. I checked my watch. You know I was going to, but I trailed off, glancing over at her car. I'm just not really motivated to anymore. Her nostrils flared. What do you want? I smiled. There was the shift. She wasn't ordering me around anymore. She was negotiating. Begrudgingly, of course, but still. It was a start. I want my parking spot back, I said simply. Permanently. No arguments. No fake fines. No Karen technicalities. Her jaw clenched so tightly I thought her teeth might shatter. Fine. And, I continued, I want you to retract that bogus violation you slapped on me. She glared. I can't just. I cut her off with a lazy wave of my hand. You absolutely can. You're the HOA president, right? The all-powerful enforcer of neighborhood laws. I leaned in slightly. Unless, of course, those powers are only real when they benefit you. She looked like she wanted to strangle me. Instead, she exhaled sharply and muttered, "Fine. I'll retract it." I grinned. "Lovely. And just to be clear, if I ever catch you in my spot again, I'll make sure the entire neighborhood knows how their HOA president spent the night trapped in her car because she was too stubborn to follow her own rules." She flinched at that and I knew I had her. The last thing Karen wanted was for her iron-fisted control over the neighborhood to look weak. People feared her because they believed she was untouchable. If they found out she wasn't, that she had lost, badly, against a single stubborn tenant, her reign of petty terror would crumble. She squared her shoulders, regaining what little dignity she had left. "Move your truck." I took my sweet time, stretching, finishing the last sip of my coffee before heading to my truck. The moment I turned the ignition and reversed out of the way, Karen practically launched into her car. But as she sped off, I caught something in her expression. She was afraid. Not of me specifically, but of losing control. And that's when I knew she'd never try this again. That afternoon, I received an email from the HOA stating that my violation had been reviewed and dismissed due to administrative error. A little while later, one of my neighbors, an older man who had been too afraid to speak up before, approached me while I was outside. "I saw what you did," he said, a knowing smile tugging at his lips. I raised an eyebrow. "Oh." He nodded. "Karen's been pulling stunts like this for years. But you? You actually stood up to her." He chuckled. "I don't think she knows what to do with herself." "Guess we'll find out," I said, smirking. And we did. Karen kept her distance after that. She still strutted around like she owned the place, but something had changed. The neighbors, emboldened by her very public defeat, started questioning her more, pushing back on her absurd fines and rules. She had lost her grip. As for me, I never had another issue with parking. And every time I pulled into my spot, I made sure to give Karen a little wave. She never waved back.